Okay, today what we're going to talk about is writing an offer on a for sale by owner. This is the second session that Christopher has brought up that people kind of need to address understanding agency and those things. We're going to go kind of quicker through the actual contract just because we've already gone through that in the previous video. So right now, the first thing I do when I go to a for sale by owner is I pull up the 2432 Concord and I see if it was ever listed. Now this one was, so that's great. I can pull a lot of information off of this. But let's say if it was not listed at all. And so what I would do is I would open it and I would open the PVA. And the reason I'm opening the PVA is I want to make sure that this person actually owns the property that is there. And so I'm going to hit log in. And I'm going to put in the 2432 Concord. And I'm going to hit search here. And then it's going to come up. All right, here's our property. It's owned by an LLC, so it's important for you to figure out who that LLC is owned by. Again, it has to be a managing member. Sometimes you will have to go to a title company, and you can literally send this over to Limestone or Millennial and say, okay, can you look up this property? Can you tell me who has the right to sign for it? And what they're going to do is they're going to grab this and they're going to take it to the Secretary of State. So this is a little more detail. Secretary of State, Kentucky. They're going to come in here and they're going to go here. And then I haven't been on this site in a while, so let's go into the search business. And you just put the LLC in here. And when you put the LLC in here, it's going to tell you the registered agent and managing is this one. So you're probably okay to go ahead and write an offer because that's who it is. But you also want to go ahead and send it over to the title company and make sure these people do have the right to sell it. A lot of times this is in an estate. The person thinks they have the right to sell it. They put everything together. It looks like they do, but when the title comes back, it hasn't gone through probate or there's another reason. So just verify. Do a seller verification. It's free. The Limestone Title Millennial does them. Make sure it's that. It takes a couple minutes. They pull it up. They'll tell you who has to sign for the property. So we're going to act like this is not an LLC. We're going to act like the owner is Christopher Bainline. And so I keep that up. I keep this up. Now I'm going to go into transaction desk. So let's say I do not have an MLS number. Let's say it does not come up because a lot of times it won't come up and you just found it on the PVA. So I want to hit in the home. I like to come in here and I like to create a transaction. And we're going to label this 2432 Concord. And the templates, this is going to be a buyer because I'm representing that. Source, neither. They're not. This is if we were going to import it if we use this, but it's not. Let's act like we don't. It was never listed before. So if it was listed before, you can put it and it can import a lot of the information. But I am only going to represent the buyer, so I'm a selling agent, and I hit create in here. And as it comes up, sorry, Monday morning. So we come in here, and this is where we actually have to put in some information. It's important to put a little bit of information in here because it will autofill on all your documents. So I'm putting in here Concord Drive, and I don't know why. Oh, street number. Sorry, Concord Drive, and I like to put the city in here. And 40217. And so I got all that information from here. I know the address of the property. And then we're acting like this says Christopher Bainline for the seller. So put that information in there. You really don't need, you can put in the legal address. If you're wondering where to find that, just come up here and grab it in here, and it will literally tell you deed book and page. So I can cut and paste this deed book and page. So copy. First one is deed book, the next one is page. So I come in here and let's see here. I come in here and I put in the deed. So remember, I'm planting that back at this. The first one is a deed book. The next one is the page. First one is the deed book, and the second one is the page number. So I'm coming over here, and I'm cutting this, and I'm pasting. So that way I've got those two numbers out there. So deed book and page, and then I can also look up the block, which I think is still in. It changed this PVA a little bit, and so see if it's got the block number in here. Just put this in for the block number. I think that's the block number now. So let me check real quick on this one and see. Deed, that's the lot, subdivision, deed book, and lot. So I can go back and reference these, but I don't have that information, so I'm trying to figure out 39. Doesn't look like the PBA is on right there, but you can get that information again from the title company, and they'll be able to tell you. Oh, there it is. And so they'll be able to tell you information, or you can actually pull it up. I forgot you can actually pull it up through the sheriff's office, and I believe they break it down. No, they're not breaking it down either anymore. But just put what information you do know in there. Yeah, obviously, we did find out if it's an old MLS, you can just copy the information off of this area right down here, deed book page and that. If not, just gather what information you can in here, the deed book and page, and it will put you up where the deed is. So that's enough to get started there. Page number, and let's go ahead and move forward. You don't need to put anything in here. Let's go ahead and add. There was an existing contract because I still have the old John Doe in there from, if you need to add somebody new, you can add that. But John Doe. I don't know where John Doe is. So I thought we used John Doe last time. So let's go ahead and add a new one. And so let's hit add, create a new one. Let's go in here, and what type of person is it? It's a buyer. And let's go John Doe. And let's go ahead and put in my email address. But you would put their email address in here. Okay. And hit save. So there we go. We've got this information here that's real important. And then I'm going to go ahead in here and hit save and exit. So I've got my contacts in here. And now I'm getting into the contracts. Now, the most important thing out of this is let's talk about the agency thing on the other side first. That is the seller. So I'm going to add a form in here. You are going to have to add a form in here. Greater Louisville Association. and come in here and get the seller and grab another consumer guide to agency, no designated agency, and hit add. So I added those two in there. So let's first go over the two things or three things that you have to get the for sale by owner to sign. Is the consumer guide to agency. That is a 3-page document, again, that you need to give them. It just explains agency. Sometimes I will give them this. It explains what agency is. Okay, so I'm going to make the the seller sign this document. The next thing that I have to have them sign is I have to have them sign the seller's agency. Now, a lot of people don't think you need to do this because you're not representing them, but this is where you're telling them. If they say, well, I don't want to sign that first 3-page, you're not representing me. Well, that's exactly right, because what I'm going to put in here is, so the seller's name is Christopher Bainline. And, okay, again, you've got to delete everything from here because it's not two agents. We're going to come all the way down here, okay? And we're going to write that this agent, okay, Scott, Boehnlein, Family Realty, okay? So transaction involving one real estate agent. Okay. I would rather you guys stay away from dual agency. Here's the way I would fill this in. It's agent Scott Bainline. Check this box. Only represents the buyer in this transaction. And that's what I would give them, saying, hey, you're representing yourself. You're for sale by owner. I'm going to give you this. You understand that I'm only representing the buyer. Okay? So that's what that would look like. Okay? So I'm going to, again, when I get out of these things, I do like to hit the save button just in case. So I've given them the 3-page agency, this one that says I'm not representing them. The next thing I need to give them is a one-time showing agreement because you need to make sure you're getting paid. This should be given at the time, this one-time showing agreement should be given at the time you show the property. Okay, when you go to show this property, this Concord, I call on this for sale by owner, I go there, and it says, this Concord hereby grants Scott, and the broker's name, me, to show the property above to John Doe by prior appointment or in about, you put the date. I'm going to show it. I showed it on Sunday. Okay, so I took this with me on Sunday. Okay, they told you that the purchase price is $175. Okay, and it says showing this result in an ultimate sale. Then the seller agrees to pay the broker designated an equal sum to, and this is where I put 3% of the purchase price. Okay, that way I'm getting paid 3% if this buyer ever buys this property, even if I show it to them and they try to go behind my back. It is further, if this property is sold to the prospective buyer, so in case they go behind your back, put like 120 days. Put 300 days, whatever you want to put. I mean, if you trust your buyer, just put 120 days. If you don't trust them, put 365 days. So that means if they come back and they buy this house without me, that I'm deserved a commission. And get your seller to sign this, and that way you've got this information. This is a one-time showing agreement. And that, so take the one-time showing agreement with you to the first showing, or send it to them so they can have that signed, understand that you're going to get 3%. Make sure when you present an offer that you're giving the seller a 3-page agency document and then the 2-page agency document that represents that you're only representing the buyer on the transaction. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to just go through and write another offer. Now again, I'm going to go kind of quick. You can refer back to that other video if you need to go over kind of how to write an offer. But I'm just going to go over the terms of this one. And so let's go in the residential sales contract. Okay. We never discuss commission in a contract. Okay. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say 2-1 is when Christopher said we should be writing this. And then this is, I always just put listing, I put for sale by owner and Fsbo, that's what that means. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start looking at the terms here. So let's say we're going to ask for the refrigerator, stove, dishwasher, microwave, no washer and dryer. Remove, we want the seller to take the washer and dryer with them. Okay. If it's owned, it shall remain. Purchase price $175. They're putting down an earnest money of $1,000. Okay. And this says, Christopher said that they're bringing from their savings $10,000. Let's say it is a conventional, or let's say this one's an FHA, just for that. So what is FHA? FHA just has a little bit more restrictions. Most of the time, FHA is a good program for first-time buyers because it allows people with low credit or low down payment to get into a house. But FHA also sometimes will require the seller to put in handrails or fixed peeling paint. Now, with the for sale by owner, for sale by owner might say, well, I'm not doing anything that FHA requests. Well, that's fine. Then you need to let your buyer know that they're going to be responsible if FHA comes up with peeling paint or a handrail, that they're going to be responsible. Fixed rate, 30-year, 5.5%. Okay. They should already be pre-approved. That means they submitted all their documents. But let's just say 5. And like Christopher said, XYZ, and you put their contact information, and so that way you can have all that in there. So let's just go through this contract again. So again, it's not VA, so it doesn't matter, so it's 0. And then you're unfortunately with the for sale by owner, Family Realty will need to hold the escrow. If for some reason for sale by owner is not comfortable with that, a title company can hold that, but normally we're going to hold that. Still contingent upon an appraisal. And let's see if they want a home warranty. Yes, they do want a home warranty, so I'm going to make the seller pay for a home warranty $555. Home warranty will be ordered by the buyer, but it's paid by the seller. And let's look in here. This is good because it's we receive. Now you're going to have to give the person, the seller, the agency disclosures, but then also you're going to have to give them the seller's disclosure to fill out, and you're going to have to give them the lead-based paint. You might have to walk them through that, but you can't give them any advice on how to fill it out. Just say fill it out to your best you acknowledge, put anything that you would want the other people to know about, or you would want to know about if I was buying your house. Give it at that. You can circle where they need to initial, but you're not giving them any advice. Okay, again, this property was built prior to 1978, and they reserve, buyer waives the right, or if the buyer wants to do a risk assessment on, you can ask your buyer, do you want to do a risk assessment on lead-based paint? And so, again, read the contract. Square footage is the same. Always give yourself inspections. Again, I like to do 14, 3. So I got to do my inspections within 14 days. I submit it to the seller. The seller then has 3 days. And then when I get it back, the buyer, then I have 3 days. If I ever put last, best, and final, I have 3 days to respond to that. Always give them the right to do a survey. Ask them if they do, because you're going to need to order that right away. He said let's do an exact closing date, which I love. I love to pick an exact closing date. That way there's no arguments or anything like that. Again, if there is an argument on the seller, if you put 30 to 45 days in here, there's an argument between the buyer and the seller, then it goes to the last day of the contract. Okay? It used to be it go when the lender's ready, but now it's the last day of the contract. So we're going to close on We're going to close really fast. Or I'm sorry, he wanted to close on the 20th. 20th. So picked an actual date, and then we're going to get the keys. We're going to give them 2 days possession. So by 2, and this is AM, that's PM, on the second day. So that's the second day after closing. So we got closing, first day, second day, 2 p.m., we get the keys. Seller warranties that there's no valid leases. That's real important with the for sale by owner in case it's leased out. Never put anything in there about title, anything there. As we kind of go through, let's see if Christopher put all right, Christopher did put washer and dryer to remain. I took it out of the contract, so you guys should know how there. We haven't seen the disclosures, so we wouldn't have a copy of those, but it's real important that you present them with the seller's disclosure again and the lead-based paint so they can fill that out. And so we'll give them 24 hours to respond. So it's 8:30 a.m. on Monday, so 8:30 a.m. One day afterwards, so we'll do that. And that's how we write. So the way I would present this to, you have to give this to the for sale by owner. So with your contract, you're going to give, you've already given the one-time showing agreement, which you should already have signed before you even present an offer. Then you're going to have the 3-page agency disclosure, the 2-page, okay, you're going to give them copies of the seller's disclosure and lead-based paint for the seller to fill out, and then you're going to give them the contract. Now, the last thing is how do we write the agency disclosure for the buyer? So we're going to go in here and we're going to put in, you're going to have them sign this one, the 3-page, which they should already have signed. Your buyer, that should be at the beginning of when you first meet with them. So you shouldn't have to get this re-signed, but if you need to, then they're going to sign this one. And then your buyer is going to sign this. And here's how we fill this out for sale by owners. This is the buyer. Okay. Again, it's not involving 2 agents. So I've got to take this out. It autofills that. I've got to come all the way down here. And we got to put in here Scott, Bainline, Family Realty is only representing the buyer. So again, this is on the, looks almost the same except for it says buyer. The other one said seller. I'm only representing the buyer on there. So you go ahead and put that on there. The last thing is I noticed as Christopher said that we need to, the buyer needed some closing costs and prepaids. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and I'm going to put in other provisions, seller to pay the buyer's closing costs and sorry, to pay, you put a dollar amount in there, he said $4,000. Seller to pay $4,000 of the buyer's closing cost and prepays at the time. Okay, so I'm going to write that in there. So seller to pay $4,000 of the buyer's closing costs and prepays at the time of closing. So make sure that the for sale by owner understands not only are they paying in this contract, if you review this contract, not only are they going to be paying my commission, which is 3%, they're also going to be paying for the warranty. They're also going to be paying $4,000 in closing costs. So make sure the buyer understands that. And then make sure the buyer and the seller sign one of our family realty disclosures. I want the for sale by owner and that. If for sale by owner balks about the 175, you can take that off. But it goes in there that the for sale by owner also is going to have about $400 of miscellaneous title fees and exactly what are closing costs and prepaid. So make sure you read that disclosure. So this recaps. Go back to the other contract that we wrote if you have any questions about how to fill out a contract, and bring all your questions tomorrow morning. Thanks so much. Bye.